What is going on, everyone? DSP here, and welcome to this week's, well, this kind of, it's been delayed a week, but today's episode of Ask the King. I am DSP. Today is April 21st, 2011, and let me tell you, we have some very, very, very good questions this time. I'm very pleased. Actually, I had a very hard time picking and choosing which questions I wanted to answer, and I honestly get the feeling I picked too many, because some of these are really good in-depth questions. So let's get right into it to try to, for time constraint reasons. Anyway, first question. Hi Phil, I'm new to fighting games and I picked up Marvel 3 as my first fighting game that I'm actually trying to learn. I used to play Mortal Kombat as a kid, but all I did was mash buttons. I noticed there seems to be major differences from Marvel 3 to other fighters. In Marvel 3, it seems like if you can land one or two hits, then you can actually land a massive combo that ends up killing the character without the other player not really able to do anything about it. However, in other games I've seen, such as Mortal Kombat and Super Street Fighter, you can't do these 50 to 100 hit combos, only up to about 5 hits, and the counter maneuvers are available, such as combo breakers. What do you think about this difference in fighting style? Do you think that one style is better than the other, and why? And that's from Voodoo51292. Hold on one second, because there we go. Someone was blocking part of my lamp. I was like, why is it so dark? And I realized the whole bulb was being blocked. Well, great question. The answer to that is the Marvel series of games, ever since way back X-Men vs. Street Fighter, it's always been multiple characters on a team. Now, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and 3, you end up with 3 characters on a team. And I think what the mentality is when they make these games is that there's 3 characters rather than 1. So what we'll do is we'll make it easier to do longer combos to do more damage, because it's going to take a longer time to kill off those people, because it's 3 characters versus, say, Mortal Kombat, where it's one-on-one. And also, in a game where it's just one-on-one, it would be very, very hard to come back if someone just hit one hit and they could kill you and that's the end of the whole round, as opposed to these Marvel games. Since you have 3 characters, if they just kill one character, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go ahead and kill the next 2 characters. Okay. Now, in particular with Marvel 3, I do have a comment to make, and this is it. In Marvel vs. Capcom 2, yes, it was very possible to land a combo that was one hit that led to a 100% combo. Some of these were infinite combos. Some of these were combos where you would start the combo, do a super move, and then DHC, which is called dual hyper cancel, into the next character's super, and that would kill the character, okay? The thing is, and this is what most competitive players are saying right now who've been playing Marvel 3, in Marvel 2, you basically needed to be very good at the game to do it, okay? Or at least to get to the proper setup to do it. In most cases, don't get me wrong, there were a couple things that were really easy to do. But for the most part, to do those kind of combos in Marvel 2, you had to put a significant amount of time into your gameplay to do those kind of things. And you really need to understand the game and get really good at it, have great hand-eye coordination, put in a lot of time for execution practice and things like that. In Marvel 3, the game has been made easy, meaning it's very dumbed down. It's very easy to do these extended combos that do massive damage and have high potential to just kill a character off with one combo. The reason this was done, and I've talked about this before, because the same exact thing happened with Street Fighter 4. Capcom is trying to sell their fighting games to a wider audience than ever before. They don't just want to sell it to this one small, tightly knit group of competitive players. They want thousands of people across the country to play these games and attempt to play them on a competitive level. So what they've done is they've made it extremely easy for Joe Schmo, who's never played a fighting game before, to sit down and learn a game like Marvel 3 with not as much time, practice, and execution as someone who had played the previous games from the 90s, okay? So the bottom line is this: if you are looking to get into fighting games these days, whether it's Street Fighter 4, whether it's Marvel 3, this is your chance, because it's easier than ever to learn the top tier strategies, the extended combos, and the things that you need to do to succeed in these games. It really is. But for someone like me, and I've talked about this before in the past, I think it's a double-edged sword, because even though it brings a lot of new people into the community, I think it dumbs down the quality of the games. I think it disappoints a lot of people who put time and effort into previous fighting games to see that someone who really didn't even put as much time or effort in as was needed previously can excel at these games and do these 100% combos to people. So that's my feeling on it. What you'll find is that there really is a community consensus right now that Marvel 3 is too easy of a game, and because of that, some people are actually thinking that it might not have as long of a tournament presence as Marvel vs. Capcom 2 did. A lot of people are already writing it off, which I think is a little premature, but it is what it is, and that's the situation. Do I like any style better than the other? Obviously, for me, I would say I like the older style of putting more time into it, because then it's really like, okay, you invested the time, you put in the effort, you went across the country during tournaments and learned different playing styles and strategies, and because of that, you're able to succeed. As opposed to today, where it seems to be like, find one team or find one character that has an insanely good combo, does a lot of damage, do the same repetitive shit in every match that you play, and simply because the game's been made so easy to play, you win every time. That's what it seems to be right now. I don't really like that in particular, but it's really early. The game's only been out for, what, 3 months? Not even. February to March, March to April, and some of April. So we're talking 2.5 months. It's really not enough time for us to really judge yet. Alright, next question. What are your opinions on the Japanese gaming industry? Do you think it's panicking because the Western gaming industry is outstripping them? Years ago, the Western game developers were no match for the Japanese, bringing us classics like Zelda and Mario, inventing the survival horror genre with Resident Evil and Silent Hill. However, when the Western market exploded, and now looking at the current situation, it's obvious that Japanese developers are somewhat panicking. Take Dead Space, for example, a game that was a great survival horror game and did not come from Japan. And then take a look at Resident Evil 5. In my opinion, Capcom tried too hard to be a Western game, and then take a look at Lost Planet 2, where the same seemed to happen there. Seems like they're trying to pitch their stuff to the Western industry to get a piece of the cake, but they're failing. It seems they have no clue, and they're way too traditionally oriented regarding their own games to make them more appealing to the Western market. So that's Vassal. So I guess he wants to know what's my opinion on the Japanese gaming market. There's a really good article in the latest issue of Game Informer from May 2011 on this subject. And the bottom line is, yeah, it's absolutely true. Because here's what it was, really back in the day, when video games were going from this, bits and bloops era of Atari and the arcade games like Centipede and stuff like that, and they were moving into a home console such as the NES that was really taken seriously. Japan was the leader. They were very innovative. They had these creative thoughts. They created these amazing concepts for games. And what's ended up happening is they really dominated the gaming market throughout the 90s, probably until the year 2000. And then in the year 2000, some of these executive bigwigs sat down and said, gee, this really is becoming a booming industry to the point where some of these games are so popular, they're making as much money as movies. But when you look at the development budgets for these games, they're nowhere near as high as the movie industry. It takes $20 million to make a movie. It takes maybe $1 million to make an exceptional game. But the game's making just as much profit as the movie, so this is a no-brainer. And so what ended up happening was a lot of Western companies, including Microsoft, ended up funding these large-scale projects, and they ended up being very successful. Some of the ones that come to mind that were the most successful were the Call of Duty series, obviously, Gears of War, Halo, and then subsequently, as those games became more popular, even more third-party studios said, gee, now's the time. EA started getting involved with a lot of this stuff and financing a lot of this stuff and buying up gaming studios. So this is a pattern. This really is a pattern. America sees where the money is, and once they've determined that it's a profitable venture, then they go hardcore into it. And sometimes it started with movies, it goes into other technology, and now here we are with video games. And Japan, unfortunately, they kind of became, I don't know how to say, I guess complacent would be the wording, where they really settled into what they were doing, their own line of thinking, and they really didn't think outside the box. They didn't expand their models for what they were doing with these video games. And I guess a good example of what's going on would be the game that just came out, Yakuza 4. And a lot of people ask me, why didn't I play Yakuza 4? Well, it's probably because it's a very Japanese-centric game, really finds a hard place to fit into a Western audience. It's very similar to other game models of that sort, including previous Yakuza. Some people compare it to the Grand Theft Auto series. And if you look at game reviews, because I've read a couple reviews, they basically said, this game is like a Grand Theft Auto that's way more linear, meaning there's not a lot of stuff to do. You could free roam, but there's nothing really to do while you free roam, so there would be no reason for you to do it. And looking at the other games that had come out, looking at the other opportunities I had, like doing another Fan Appreciation Week, and looking at the whole emphasis of the game, and realizing that probably a lot of Western people watching that game wouldn't associate with it or really relate to it, I skipped it. And I get the feeling that's what a lot of people in America and other, countries are doing. They say, this game is too Japanese focused. It's too much focus on anime or on the Japanese culture or this old design of Japanese games, and we just don't like that anymore. We're looking for more in our games, and they pass. So it's funny because those kind of games in Japan seem to be extremely popular, but that's one country. So if they're okay with just being popular in their own home country, for example, Final Fantasy 13. Now actually that's another question that we're going to get to. And actually, if I can find it, we might as well go ahead and answer it right now because it ties in with this question. This question was basically when Final Fantasy 13 was released, there were good reviews and praises in a lot of media, but actually in the US it didn't sell as high as they thought it would. Do you think that that's because it was a 13 in the title? And that was from Narrow-Minded 17. No, Narrow-Minded 17. I don't think it has anything to do with the title whatsoever. I think the name Final Fantasy is synonymous with a good role-playing game. What I think happened is, again, they've taken this model and they ran with it. And yeah, they did refine the combat engine in Final Fantasy 13, but look at what the primary aspects of the game were. A quirky plot that a lot of people in the Western audience didn't really understand or associate themselves with, especially the characters. A lot of people said, I don't get any of these characters. They don't seem like anyone that I know or any kind of an archetype of a hero or a person that I would know. I don't associate with these characters, and therefore I really don't like the story. Then, once you got halfway through the game, they forced you into this grind-based system, which most people in the Western audiences don't like. They don't like just grinding for the sake of grinding so that they can keep playing the game. They don't like extremely high difficulty jumps in a game, which is exactly what happened at the second half of that game. So, if Japan keeps going by these models, I don't think the games are going to be popular in Western audiences. Games that have found themselves to be more popular, games that are easy to jump into, easy to learn, but they do have a difficulty curve once you enjoy what you're doing in the game. So a game like that would be the first Mass Effect, where it was easy to jump into, but actually your first playthrough had some very difficult parts. But if you loved the gaming engine, you loved the narrative, you loved the characters, everything you associate with that, and then having some revolutionary things in the gameplay as well, like these branching conversation arcs that can determine the ending of the game, change the ending of the game, things like that. That's really where games are going right now, and that's why Japan is struggling. They're not finding enough innovation, they're not finding enough things, they're just staying within their model of a traditional Japanese game, and the games are becoming very popular just in Japan, but no one else in the world is really catching on. So I think that's what's happening. I think that Japan needs to find a way to break outside the box and get out of that model and that archetype that they've been stuck in for quite some time. Next question. What do you think motivates trolls and haters to act the way that they do other than jealousy? And that's from Torn Reaper. I'll give a very quick answer because there are a lot of factors. Number one, jealousy is one. Outside of jealousy, a lot of people think, hey, look, here's a guy who's online, and it's not necessarily just me, it could be anyone, and look, I can do something. I can leave a hateful comment and then people respond, so I get attention. And giving these people attention is very attractive to them because maybe they don't get attention outside of that, or they don't get the right kinds of attention, and so they're just looking for any attention in their life. So, look, I can shit on someone, or I can say something really stupid, or I can, troll a website, and because I'm doing that, I get attention, and you get personal satisfaction out of that. And then, on the flip side, there are people, I'm sure, who just hate. They really do. They don't like people who are successful. Maybe it's just not jealousy. Maybe they just don't like it that people are successful doing different things, and so they just really have genuine hate in their hearts. I don't know. I'm not these people, but I can see those as being some of the factors. So let's move on. Next question. Hey Phil, there are many comments on your videos, some asking you questions, some giving you tips and criticism, and some actually trolling you. Sometimes I see you actually respond to the comments. My question is, how often do you check and read your video comments? And that's from XP Sunny D. Good question. And the answer, I'll try to make it quick, but basically, I do, whenever I put up a new video series, try to at least read the comments on maybe the first video and then some of the other videos and maybe on the last video to see how I'm doing, if people enjoyed the game, if people really enjoyed what I did during the game. I cannot read every comment, obviously, and it's actually a tricky thing. It's actually a dangerous thing, because sometimes you end up sitting there for an hour reading all these comments and you realize, fuck, I just spent all that time reading comments. I have other stuff I need to do, and it can be really addictive to just read these comments and take the criticism and the advice, and also the hating and the trolling. So you have to really be careful with something like that. When you become popular on YouTube, you may become like just so focused on the comments that you don't go and actually do anything else. And you have to take every comment with a grain of salt. Everyone has their own opinion and they have their own perspective based on their own experience and where they're coming from. So you can't take every comment as gospel truth. So it really is, that's a good question. I say probably whenever I put out a new series or a new game, something like that, I try to read a couple comments to see what people think. For example, yesterday I put out some series of Mortal Kombat, and I read a couple of the comments on the offline casuals, and I read a couple of the comments on the actual story mode to get some feedback on what people thought. And apparently people like the gameplay so far, and they really enjoyed the story mode. They thought the story was really good, so that's that. The next question, I basically combined about 40 questions asking the same exact damn thing. And basically the question is, where's Project 7? Where are the new Hateful Truth episodes? Where are these other things that we're suggesting you do that would take a lot of video editing? Why aren't you making a lot of this kind of video? The answer is very simple. My computer right now is crapping out, my desktop. It's come to the point where I had to reformat it. I installed Windows 7. I previously had Windows Vista on there. It's still not doing very well. And when I say that, I mean for basic functions, for uploading, it's fine. But when I do video editing now, for whatever reason, it crashes a lot. Meaning, I'll set up a video, for example, this part of Ask the King, I'll set it up for editing, and I'll let it run, and it'll say, okay, it's going to take 30 minutes to edit this, and then 25 minutes in, I come back and there's an error message, your program has crashed. And I'm like, fuck, And it seems the more editing that I'm putting into these videos, the more often it's crashing. It's just completely wasting my time. So at this point, I'm not doing anything that's going to involve video editing unless it's something that's already established, like the weekend preview, unboxing videos, these videos, Ask the King. These are really the 3 series that I'm keeping, that I'm editing, because I have templates set up and it's not that hard. And it is frustrating because Smart Guys, for example, last week, people said, well, gee, what took so long to get episode 2 of Smart Guys up, or part 2 of Smart Guys up? It was because the video editor crashed 3 fucking times. There's nothing we can do to get around it. It just completely wasted like 3 hours of our time. So I need a new computer. And the good news is, it looks like, at least from everything that I've seen, that I'm going to be able to do this, or a more permanent kind of a deal, at least for months to maybe a couple years. It looks like it might be a consistent source of income for me, and therefore I am going to buy a new computer. Right now I'm still balancing in my head what I'm going to do. It's either going to be a Mac desktop, a Mac laptop, or maybe a really high-end desktop PC, Windows-based. And I'm weighing things in my head of what I want to do. A lot of people have contacted me and said, Phil, don't buy a pre-built desktop, make your own. And to that I'm saying absolutely not. I will never do that again. I used to do that. I did that all the time. In fact, I used to actually have a hobby where I built high-end desktop computers for gaming and other things. And after spending $3,000 on one laptop, it was extremely high-end. It was running, at the time, it was running the latest episode of Unreal Tournament at like the highest settings, and it looked amazing. One little power outage, and the fucking thing completely fried. And after that, I said, it is not worth it for me to contact every single parts manufacturer in this thing to try to get my money. It's not worth it to try to argue with the surge protector company who the desktop computer was plugged into to try to get the money. I'm just not doing it anymore. It's too time consuming to build your own computer. It takes too much effort. There's too many problems that come up when you're doing it. It's not worth it. So I am just going to buy a pre-built PC, but I haven't determined what it's going to be yet. I am kind of leaning at this point towards a Mac, because I think they are the best for video editing, and I'm thinking I may buy a Mac for video editing, and then maybe somewhere down the line I'll buy a cheaper PC for gaming, just so for games that people want me to play, I would be able to do it. But that's the answer. That's why I'm not putting out anything that takes a significant amount of video editing, and in particular the Hateful Truth would be absolutely impossible for me to do without a computer that can handle it, and it would continuously crash on the PC I have now to do it, so I'm not doing it right now. real short and sweet. Ghost basically said, "Did I hear that LA Noire just got selected to be featured at the Tribeca Film Festival?" If you don't know what that is, the Tribeca Film Festival is a festival where they feature all kinds of movies, and it's where some of these movies first get noticed and get attention and win awards. It is amazing that a video game is actually going to be at this film festival. This is, in my opinion, the first step of getting video games recognized as a work of art as opposed to just some kind of a diversion. Because, you know, movies right now are held in high regard. Why? Sometimes I have no idea when you get some of the shit that I see shoveled out of fucking Hollywood, but there's no reason with the amount of time that's being put into video games, with the actors that are now being involved in video games, the voice acting, the long elaborate plots, the graphical design that's going into it, just as much work as, say, some of the work that goes into movies like Avatar. There's no reason why games shouldn't be recognized as works of art, and this is the first step. I think it's amazing, and I'm really pleased to hear that LA Noire is getting that kind of attention, and I can't wait to play the game. A lot of people ask me about how do I record, what camera do I use, what's your process for setting up to record, what's your routine like on a day when you're recording, all these kind of questions I've been getting, and they're all very common. I'm thinking what this might call for is that coming up the next week that I have some slow time, I may do an in-depth series of me and how I make my videos and how exactly I set everything up, how that process goes. So I think I will actually do something like that in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And the last question that I'll put into this part for part one, because I'm running out of time, this is an interesting question. What was your high school experience like? And a lot of people actually asked me this question this time, so it's not any particular person. A lot of people say, "Gee, Phil, were you a bookworm? Were you a jock? Were you a bully? Were you bullied? Were you in a clique?" A lot of these interesting questions. When I started in high school, I didn't really know anyone at the high school, and I was very skinny in high school, if you could believe it. If you've seen any of the pictures from back then, around the year 2000, there are a couple of them around the internet. You see I was very skinny. That was really before I even started seriously working out or anything, where I buffed up a little bit. So at that point, you know, I was coming in a really skinny, tall kid, going into a school, didn't know a lot of people. And at first I did get bullied, actually. It was pretty funny. My freshman year sucked. There was a couple kids who tried to bully everyone, and I was one of the many who got bullied. And that first year really blew, but then what ended up happening was, in the next year, sophomore year, a lot of these kids actually started talking to me and found out that I was a funny guy. Like, as you know, it's one of the main reasons I'm so popular on YouTube is because I'm entertaining, because people say I'm funny. And they kind of caught on to the sense of humor, and so some of the kids kind of calmed down with the bullying. Some of the others didn't, and what ended up happening in sophomore year was I had enough. And you know, it's really hard when you have a family who's a nonviolent family, when everyone around you is nonviolent, and I actually was in a Catholic high school as well, where obviously you're not supposed to fight. But, you know, at some point, enough is enough. And so I remember two particular incidents. There was one kid who was fucking around with me, and he was kicking me, and then finally he went to kick me again, and I grabbed his fucking leg, and I pulled him, and he went crashing down into a bunch of desks behind him, and got pretty banged up because of it. And after that, he was like, "Wow, whoa, maybe I shouldn't pick on this kid. He's going to fight back." And there was another particular time I remember there was this kid who was just really annoying. It wasn't even like he was bullying. He would just, like, fucking push you and stuff when you were sitting there. And one day in computer lab, he was doing it. So I got up in his face and I said, "If you do it again, I'm going to fucking kick your ass," basically. And he thought I was fucking around, so he did it again. And I pushed him so hard into the wall of my high school, this computer lab, it actually made a giant fucking dent in the wall. Like, his whole back imprinted in the wall. And he was banged up after that. Obviously, he was, like, knocked silly, because I pushed him so fucking hard. And after that, we kind of started becoming friends, and we started hanging out. And I didn't belong to any particular clique or anything in high school. I was actually at the top of my class, not because really, I don't really think because I put in too much effort. I don't know, it was just easy for me. Maybe it's just some people are born with it in their genes, I don't know. But I really, after freshman year, I really didn't put any, you know, really significant time into studying, besides maybe one or two courses that really kicked my ass. I remember one of them was like AP British Lit, and boy, that class fucking sucked, because I hated everything that we did in that class, but you really had to put so much time and effort into it to pass it. But yeah, I had very good grades in high school, but the group that I hung out with, which was probably like 5 or 6 of us, were very independent. We weren't jocks. We weren't nerds. We weren't into like any particular clique. We were kind of just our own group, a group of people who just didn't want to be associated with all the other cliques. We wanted to do whatever the fuck we wanted, and that was it. Looks like time's running out here for this first part. Yeah, and we were very independent, and we did whatever the hell we wanted. Actually, for senior year, we really did whatever the hell we wanted, to the point where we kind of took it a little bit too far. But yeah, and that was us. No, I wasn't a bully or anything in high school, that's for sure. We pretty much, once we established our own group, we just kind of did whatever we wanted and didn't associate with everyone else. And it was funny because there were people who were involved in different stuff. You know, I was at the top of the class. I was into video games and stuff like that. One of the kids that I was friends with was a hockey player, so he was a little bit of a jock. One kid was a very physical, actually big. He was like almost like, you know, the kid you would expect to be a bully, but he kind of ended up not being like that because he hung out with us. Just different people involved in different stuff from a high school experience, but we all kind of came together to be a group of friends, which is pretty funny. But the other funny thing is, college, actually one or two of them, we ended up going to the same college, and then after that first semester, we all broke up and never saw each other again. I have no idea what even happened to any of them, so. Then there was no 10-year high school reunion, which I was surprised at, so I didn't really get to see what happened to anyone from my high school. So it is kind of a weird experience. I kind of thought there would be like a 10-year reunion. I get together with them and see how everyone's doing, but that never happened. And it is what it is. You know, high school was a formative time for me, and that was my experience. So, all right, that's part one. We will come back with part two because I still have many more questions to answer. So we will be back.